Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Oh, it's a very solemn day. Very, very, very solemn. There is no room for joking around today. Oh, what happened here? Oh, there.
This is the historic walk that we had anticipating. Our own Chad Pergram is there watching on with us as well. And we just heard from Senator Joni Ernst. And we have heard from those Senate Republicans who have been demanding that Schumer hold Mayorkas, the Mayorkas impeachment trial. As you see them walking these articles of impeachment, 43 Republican senators, including Ernst, they sent this letter to Schumer calling on the Senate to fulfill what they say is their constitutional duty by holding a trial to consider the impeachment of Department of Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. So, Trace, this is the highly anticipated walk. This is what is happening as Republicans pressure Democrat colleagues not to dismiss this.
You know, it's like it's the ultimate in projection. This is the ultimate in because Donald Trump was recorded saying that he wanted dirt on Joe Biden in order to give aid to Ukraine, and he was impeached for that. And then, of course, after January 6th, and he said, you're not going to have a government anymore unless you fight like hell, kind of thing. He was impeached for causing all kinds of chaos and violence at the Capitol. Now he's on trial in a regular courtroom, which is what Mitch McConnell said should happen, right? Mitch McConnell said the reason why he's not being removed for this horrible crime that he is responsible for, the violence that ensued at the Capitol, that the proper place for such a thing to occur would be in the actual court, the criminal court system. And he was pretty sure that the criminal court system would work. And so that's where Donald Trump should be held accountable for the violence. Okay, and so they started screaming, you're weaponizing the entire system of justice. You're weaponizing the entire impeachment process. And didn't you just see what I played? That was the Marjorie Taylor Greene caucus actually marching over to the Senate to deliver articles of impeachment against a cabinet member, Alejandro Mayorkas. Why a cabinet member? You know the history here. We have not seen, in America, we have not seen the impeachment of a cabinet official since 1879. They are fascinated with this whole Civil War era. They are fascinated with this whole, North, South, the whole Confederacy versus the whole. So why don't I just compromise with them and let Donald Trump be the president of the Confederacy? Okay, because he could claim that he's immune from prosecution that way, but only in the South. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wouldn't help him in New York, which is probably why he's not all about, dividing the spoils of the vote right now.
I feel like you finally have a take that MAGA would absolutely agree with you.
They would love.
They'd love it.
Sure. And I always said there's plenty of things that MAGA should like about me, and that would be one of them. But so now, because they are weaponizing the little one-seat majority that they have in the House, they are going to and have issued articles of impeachment for a cabinet member. That has not happened in the United States of America since 1879, and the cabinet member is Alejandro Mayorkas, the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security. I have no idea what his crime is. He probably doesn't either. I don't think anybody outside of the Freedom Crackers know what they've accused him of and why it's a crime and why it's impeachable as an offense, but they're doing it anyway. They're doing it. So today is a very solemn day, everybody, a solemn, solemn day. Now, as far as whether or not the Senate, which is not a majority of Republicans, okay, also by one seat. So, but because it's not in the hands of the Freedom Crackers, because the Freedom Crackers don't have, the ability to discharge Chuck Schumer the way that they have the ability to discharge Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House currently. Who? I know. So if you blink your eyes, you will miss two things. You will miss the speakership that was Mike Johnson's speakership because of Marge, and you will miss the impeachment of Alejandro Mayorkas, because there is no way that the Senate is going to have a full, there's 11 impeachment managers, and Marjorie Taylor Greene is one of them. I don't know when that three-toed thing actually became a lawyer. I'm not really sure, but it would almost be worth it to watch that. It would almost be worth it. It would be, hysterical, because she's no Adam Schiff, you understand. It's not going to be midnight in America. You know what I'm saying? But that is actually going on. Now, the only way I knew that was actually going on today is because in my kitchen on the little 13-incher, which isn't so small, the older I get, 13 is, I have it on Fox. Seriously. And I saw it this morning when I went to get my cup of coffee, my cup of joe. I was like, oh, my God, I forgot are they really doing it? Yes, today is the day. And tomorrow is the day that they want the trial to begin. Tomorrow is the day that they want Chuck Schumer to actually begin a trial. Now, I promise you this, okay? Chuck Schumer will do whatever is required by the rules, because that's who he is. That's why a lot of, super left-wing, liberals call him Schmucky Chucky. They got all kinds of names for him. They don't love him. They didn't love Nancy either, who was the most successful Speaker of the House in the history of the House. Okay, but they found ways to trash them too, because wars, wars. Not that we started them. We didn't start the fire, which is interesting. But Chuck Schumer will do whatever is required by the rules of the Senate to be done after being presented with articles of impeachment. But I promise you that there are enough Republicans that are sane, like, Mitt Romney, let's just say, who will vote with the Democrats if the issue comes up for a vote to either proceed or to table the impeachment articles, because that is a choice that will be presented. And I'm sure that the bipartisan nature of the tabling will be shocking, I tell you, shocking to Marge, Large Marge is literally losing her mind right now. She is so angry. She's furious at Mike Johnson. Furious, I tell you. Why? Because Mike Johnson, he made his, duly required pilgrimage down to Magaloco, right, to meet with Donald Trump, which is what Donald Trump does to every Speaker of the House. And then once he's like, Johnson doesn't realize it, but, I'm sure right now, what's his face? Kevin McCarthy is like laughing his butt off in a hot tub somewhere, drinking wine and smoking a doobie with, what's his face? Boner. Just laughing, pointing and laughing at Mike Johnson, who's like repeating history over and over, just going down there and doing the same damn thing and expecting a different result.
I thought you were going to say Santos.
Oh, no. Boner is a marijuana like lobbyist guy. He owns but he was always a red wine drinker. His eyeball, he had very, very blue eyes, but his eyes were always like red from drinking. Like he was one of those. Yeah, he was. So him and McCarthy. They got to be like laughing their brains out as they watch freaking Johnson, repeat all their mistakes, But she's furious because Mike Johnson went to Magaloco, where she thought he would get his marching orders not to introduce any aid for Ukraine and only introduce aid for Israel. And Mike Johnson's going to introduce aid to Ukraine and aid to Israel and aid to Taiwan. But separately. What? Separately. As if they're unrelated. Russia is invading Ukraine. They're also best friends with Iran. You understand that?
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
There are precipitating events around the globe that we're all watching very carefully, and we know that the world is watching us to see how we react. We have terrorists and tyrants and terrible leaders around the world like Putin and Xi and in Iran, and they're watching to see if America will stand up for its allies and in our own interest around the globe, and we will.
Well, but they haven't.
Right.
I'm very glad he said that, and hope that he actually comes through with a clean aid bill to Ukraine. They haven't said it, but they're talking about it now. What's it look like, Richard?
Look, I don't much care whether it's a combined bill or a separate bill, so long as the aid for Ukraine passes. That's the most pressing of all of that.
Right.
And every day the battlefield news, Joe, is awful strategically, but also in human terms. The idea that you have these soldiers on the front lines who simply maybe have a half dozen shells and they have to parcel them out to get through a day. You can't fight a war that way, and it's tilting in Russia's favor. This is recklessness and irresponsibility on steroids that we've ever reached this point. I'm hoping, and again, to me, it doesn't matter so much whether it's loans or grants. Just get Ukraine the military aid.
I mean, it's just so unbelievable to me. And how are they deaf, dumb, and blind to the fact that Russia is best friends with Iran, and Russia is the one that's invading Ukraine in this unbelievably obvious act of aggression? And they're sitting there and they go, oh, well, we're going to parse it out. And they're going to loan. This is what they want to do. They want to loan Ukraine the money. And nobody really gives a rat's ass if they loan it to Ukraine, if they grant it to Ukraine. Just get it there. Get it there. You got guys literally on the front lines in Ukraine with like 6 bullets in their pocket. And the same Iranian drones, the same ones that just, we saw be shot down by the Iron Dome, which is awesome technology, which is what Ukraine would love to have and does not have. But those same drones that were able to be defeated in over the Israeli territory could be defeated over Kiev, could be defeated over, Kharkiv, could be defeated over all of Ukraine if they had the technology, if they had the Iron Dome system. And they don't. Iron Dome and sling. It sounds like prostate care to me, but it is a defense weapons system, and Ukraine would love to have it, and they don't. So I think what Mike over here, the little cutie pie, Jesus's handpicked cutie boy, I think what he's suggesting is that for the ultra right, give them an Israeli defense package to vote for. For the ultra left, they don't want to vote for any money for Israel, right? And so let's give them a Ukraine aid package that they can vote for, right? The ultra-right will vote against the Ukraine. The ultra-left will vote against the Israeli. And then the Taiwan, I guess everybody will agree because it's very obvious that the enemy there is China. And then they have, this is very sick, then they have what they're calling a GOP security package. This bill, what you have here is the Senate bill, okay? This is the Senate bill that passed with bipartisan votes for the aid packages for the aforementioned countries, right? Taiwan, Israel, and Ukraine. And there was some security stuff in there too. Well, the Republicans have now split the Senate bill, which means it will have to be voted on again individually in the Senate because you can't even change a comma. You can't change quotation marks. It has to be the identical bill or else it has to go to a conference committee and be all sorted out. So this is really just delay is what it is. But if you're going to talk about what was in the Senate bill and that they're dividing it out, for Ukraine aid over here and over here we'll do the Israeli and over there we'll do the Taiwan. So what's in the security package? They want to ban TikTok. I swear to God. That's what's in their security package. This is very twisted governance. I mean, they don't know how to govern. They never did. And, now it's crunch time because there's actual live fire occurring around the freaking globe. And you can see that Iranian drones can be defeated over here, but not over there. And it's very, it's upsetting to anybody who gives a damn because, frankly, the Ukrainians did nothing. They did absolutely nothing. They haven't invaded Russia. They haven't shot into Moscow. They haven't done anything at all. They have sat there and taken the invasion and tried to thwart it and tried to beat it back and try to protect their Zaporizhian, nuclear power plant, their steel plant. People were literally hiding in the steel plant for months, living below ground. People are living to this minute in the subway system. I mean, it's so unbearable. No one talks about it, okay? And yet we had protests all across this country yesterday. Do you know that? You do if you lived in Oakland. You do if you lived in Brooklyn or worked in Manhattan and had to go back to Brooklyn, or, live in Manhattan and had to go to Brooklyn to go to work. Everybody knows. Oakland knows, okay? Major cities, anybody who had a bridge. Don't ask me what's going on with bridges. I told you, it's very untimely. The whole thing, bridges are just falling down now. People are chaining themselves to bridges now and protesting for Iran. I thought it was really hard to take when they were protesting for Hamas, and they would swear, we're not protesting for Hamas. We have nothing to do. But now they're protesting for Iran, and chanting death to America. Well, let me just say this. Only in America could you get away with saying death to America. Okay? You will never get away with that in Iran. So why are you screaming about killing us for Iran? It blows my mind. You know what it's like? It's like Mayorkas is being impeached and they won't pass the border security package. Like they're impeaching Mayorkas because he doesn't have the tools. The tools were passed in the Senate, right, to give more asylum officers, to give more detention beds, to do like another 2,000 border agents, to increase enforcement, to get, all kinds of, talking about drones, all kinds of drones and bomb sniffing dogs to sniff out fentanyl at the border and blah, blah, blah. And the House said, no, we want to impeach Mayorkas instead. I mean, this is so crazy. It's such a lunatic fringe that has, such awesome amounts of power that we just can't get out of our own way. And the whole world's now freaking watching. The whole world. It's unbelievable. The former president of the United States is on trial in New York. Do you know that today we've only gotten 3 jurors seated so far? We got 3. Yay, 3. But Donald Trump has been audible, according to the judge, Judge Marchand. He's been audible, and the judge had to tell him, I guess, between naps, because, yesterday it was reported by Maggie Haberman of the New York Times that Donald Trump was slack-jawed and his eyes were like rolling around in his head. They were closed. And he was sleeping. He was nodding. He was whatever. And then today again, another reporter said, yeah, he's still having a very hard time staying awake. So Sleepy Don, they're calling him, the memes on the internet are priceless. They called him Don Snorleone. They called him Sleepy Don because, Sleepy Joe and all that stuff, right? The man can't stay awake, but when he is awake for the brief moments of being lucid, I think they're drugging him personally. He's intimidating the jury.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844.
561-270-3844. I have to ask, you guys have been, at the Times, have been live blogging this event. And 40 minutes ago, you wrote an observation that I was very surprised. Trump appears to be sleeping. His head keeps dropping down and his mouth goes slack. Tell us about that.
His mouth goes slack.
Well, Jake, he appeared to be asleep, and repeatedly his head would fall down. There have been other moments in other trials, like the Agent Herald trial, which was around the corner in January, where he appeared very still and seemed as if he might be sleeping, but then he would move. This time, he didn't pay attention to a note that his lawyer, Todd Blanche, passed him. His jaw kept falling on his chest, and his mouth kept going slack. Now, sometimes people do fall asleep during court proceedings, but it's notable given the intensity of this morning and a lot of what was being argued.
And the only thing dropping faster than his head and his slack jaw is Truth Social. Have you seen that? This is insane. I mean, the man is committing fraud against his own maggots as he's sitting on trial for fraud. I mean, the nerve of him. It's just like, and you know, it's a cult. It's a cult. There's this, I think it's 10 pages. This is, I put it in the homework. If you want to read it, you don't have to read through the whole thing, but it's an article about specifically a bunch of people, but a guy in Oklahoma, 71 years old, okay, still cutting trees for a living, okay? He's a fit guy. I saw him. He was wearing his Under Armour with the spandex in it. He didn't look half bad for a 71-year-old dude, right? And he had invested his entire nest egg, which turned out to be about 25 grand, in Donald Trump's Truth Social stock, and he bought it at $90. It's like $26 right now. I don't know. I have to. It tanked. It tanked, and now they're gonna sell off some of the shares that the big investors hold and dilute the small investors portion. It's such a scam. It's such a fraud, and these guys are like, I know God dropped this stock. I swear to God. That's what it says. God dropped this stock into my lap. And they're buying it now. They're still buying it at 26. It's very sick. It's very sad. So, you know, this guy, his name is Jerry Dean McClain. I'm not making this up. Okay. It's, he said that he's going to keep buying until his whole nest egg is invested in it. His whole 25,000. He said, if anything, he wants to buy more. It went from $90 when he bought it to $66 to $26. Barry Diller, who's like one of the richest, people on the planet, he actually called the people who are investing in this stock dopes and morons, and said this is like worse than GameStop. You know, people who invest in theaters when there are no theaters, people who invest in, stores when there are no stores. He's like, I don't even understand like how you explain this to somebody when you explain to them these people are purchasing a stock that has $4 million worth of revenue annually and $58 million worth of debt. And it's been valued at like billions. How does that even happen in America? And they're doing, well, it's Donald Trump, and he's got, the little investors are saying, you know how the Godfather always said, it's business, it's not personal. These little guys that are throwing their whole nest egg, their 25,000 that they saved up at the age of 71, that's what they have between them and the world, and they're spending it in this manner. They're saying because it's personal, not business. What? Talk about 180s, man. You talk about everything up as down and black as white and through the. He said, I know, this is his quote. He said, I know good and well it's in Trump's hands. He's got plans. I have no doubt it's going to explode. Yeah, like in your face. It's unbelievable. And so the guy from Forbes, who looks at the stock market and specifically stocks, he's like trying to explain, that Trump media is a farce. That this is just it's the saddest thing, and that everyone who's getting in is going to lose their money.
Truth Social tanking. Donald Trump's shares today plunging more than 18%.
Oh, God.
The latest plunge coming amid news that the social media company is putting another 21.5 million shares up for sale.
Oh, my God.
Company's bleeding money, so they want to issue more shares to raise the money. But of course, when you issue new shares, that means the already existing shares get diluted. They lose value. And the share price has already fallen by half. Trump himself has actually lost almost $3 billion since Truth Social went public less than 3 weeks ago, all on paper. Out front now, Dan Alexander, the senior editor at Forbes. So, Dan, flooding the market with new shares. What is the bottom line for small investors who bought into Trump's company because they believe in him?
Well, the bottom line is that they are going to get diluted, and this makes it more likely that they are going to lose money. The problem here is that this SPAC was set up and the deal was set up in a way that allowed a lot of Wall Street insiders and Trump and the other people involved with his company to get in at very, very discounted rates. Meanwhile, all the retail shareholders were putting up huge sums to buy in. And the ultimate effect is that they put in the cash and the other people walk away with the shares.
Oh, man. he's literally defrauding his own. I mean, like Steve Bannon, he did it, but small, right? He stole $1 million from the We Build the Wall crowd. Him and what was his name? The wounded veteran, but I want to say Farage, but it's not Farage. Anyway, they went out there and they told people to give money to Steve Bannon and their We Build the Wall thing, and they would finish the wall. They would build it. They would spend their money on building, and they stole the money. The only reason why Steve Bannon isn't in jail is because Donald Trump pardoned him. You understand that? And now Donald Trump is doing it to you using NASDAQ. I mean, it's just so unbelievable. So he allowed like the big moneyed people to come in, buy shares at a discounted price, then released it to you people out there, right? Some people actually said, yeah, $90, that's a great price. I'm buying it. And they spent their entire nest egg. They're called retail investors, small investors. And now they're going to issue more shares so that Donald Trump can raise even more cash off of this dog of a stock, this pig in a poke. And the more shares they issue, the more, I want to say diluted, but diluted your shares become. So the value of your share is less than what it is today. And it's like $26 today, and you bought it at $90. Oh, my God. I just, and it's right in front of our face. I mean, we're watching the guy say things to jurors to scare them in a live trial in the court where, like I said, I really believe that they've tweaked his Adderall, and they're managing his, sleep cycle. I don't know what they're giving him, but where's Ronnie Jackson? Anybody know? Where is he? Remember him? Yeah, the White House. He's the dictator from Texas now. He's a House member. Ronnie Jackson got himself elected after he went down the aisle of Air Force One giving out Provigil to wake him up and, Ambien to sleep.
This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
I'm sorry, can you say that again? 561-270-3844. Okay, thank you. Fred in Oregon.
Yes, concerning funding for Ukraine.
Yes.
Are you familiar with Russian sanctioned assets that are total over $300 billion?
Yes.
Why isn't President Biden using those Russian sanctioned assets to help Ukraine?
That is part of the idea here. That is part of the package, to use the frozen money that we took from Russia from the sanctions. And
but Professor, excuse me. Professor Lawrence Tribe is a constitutional law scholar, and he says that President Biden has the authority to do that without consent of Congress.
Maybe he does. So maybe.
And he hasn't done it.
Well, because, I think that they would like to pass an aid package for Ukraine.
I understand that. But we could have been helping Ukraine a month ago by using the Russian sanctioned assets.
Oh, I don't know about that. I haven't looked into it. And if you would have given me some sort of a, heads up, maybe I could do some research on it and get back to you on that. But I don't know.
Okay. Very good. Thank you for your time.
How would I know? Because Lawrence Tribe said something. Where did he say it? When did he say it? How did he say it? Yes, there are billions of dollars. There are billions of dollars that are frozen from Russian sanctions. And I believe that's part of the package that, would help people to give Ukraine the weapon systems that it needs. Now, you know what's crazy about weapon systems? I mean, I don't know how many people realize that 95% of the money, I actually did research this, 95% of the money that we, give to foreign aid for weapons purchases comes right back to the United States. You do understand how this country works with regard to defense contracting, don't you? So here's the thing. Weapons are not made by the government. Weapons are made by private businesses in the United States and elsewhere. One of the things you have to hold in your head is that Israel has quite a manufacturing system there. They manufacture a good chunk of their own arsenal. So just remember that, okay, as we go through this. So weapons are made by private businesses. The transfers have to be approved by Congress. The transfers of weapons. Okay, so maybe this helps you sort out your answer, okay? So the transfer of weapons has to be approved by Congress. Okay. Now, weapons are made around the world. I doubt that there's any, and maybe somebody in the weapons manufacturing industry happens to be listening today, but I doubt that there's any weapons system that is 100% manufactured by one company. I don't think that a weapon system exists like that. Okay. But since very few weapon systems, let's say, can be made from start to finish by any one manufacturer. Think about aircraft carriers. Think about F-15s, F-35s. Think about, just all kinds of big things, I don't think that they're made from beginning to end by one manufacturer. So if we, let's say, cut off Israel, right? Because people are out there going, you want to give money to everybody. Well, if we cut off Israel, let's say, okay, they could replace almost everything, especially like the 2,000-pound bombs that people are really upset about because they're dumb bombs. They're really bunker busters, okay? And the reason why Israel needs them or wants them or has to have them is because the Iranian, not that they would strike inside Iran. I just don't see that happening. But if they did, you know where they would go. They would go to Natanz, right? They would go to Ishfatar, I think it's called. They would go where the rumor is that Iran has its nuclear facilities. I won't say capability because I don't think they have it. And this is where Trump, just totally screwed up, okay? He gave up on, keeping Iran from going nuclear. All right, at the JPOC. So that's why Israel wants bunker busters. They want bunker busters just in case they ever have to destroy the Natanz facility, which is way below ground. Way below ground. We have that happening here too. Offutt Air Force Base in Nebraska. That place, I've been there. That place is like 47 stories below the ground level. It's mission control for a lot of operations. Let's just say that. But anyway, like I said, Israel manufactures a good deal of its own arsenal. So if we cut off Israel, we're literally cutting off ourselves. You understand? Because they would just pick up the slack and manufacture 2,000-pound dumb bombs. It's not, a technological miracle. It's not a marvel of science, right? But because they buy this stuff from us, we give them billions of dollars a year, and then they come back and they spend 95% of it here. Same thing with Ukraine. The problem is not the money, okay? Not the money, from what I can tell. The problem is the transfer of the actual goods. That has to go through Congress. As far as I know, this is what I'm saying. If you gave me, like a minute or two, obviously, a couple of seconds and I've thought about it, but if you gave me a minute or two, I could actually confirm, whether or not Congress has to, and I know they do, they have to approve the transfer of the weapons. It's not the money. It's not the money. So when you say we could have been helping Ukraine this whole time, not really. Maybe we could have given them cash, but we could not have transferred things to them without Congress. That's number one. Number two, some of these things that we're talking about, like F-35s and the Iron Dome missile system and things like that, not only would the equipment have to be transferred and approved by Congress as far as I can tell, but you also have to have people trained on how to fly an F-35 or how to fly an F-15. And that has been going on by virtue of, I guess it's Sweden, that's training pilots, Ukrainian pilots, on these, advanced aircraft. And they haven't transferred them over because they're not ready to be transferred over, not because they're not built, but because they're not trained yet. So it's a process. And the idea that, you would just call me all snippy like that and tell me, we could have been helping.
He wanted answers, and he wanted them now.
Now,
Randy.
God damn it. What's wrong with you, Blondie? You and your $3 Temu sweater. You think you're so tough, huh? How about this? Answer me this. Go debate Lawrence Tribe. I don't know what Lawrence Tribe said, but if Lawrence Tribe said it, I'm sure it was accurate, but I'm sure it wasn't the whole kit and caboodle about weapons systems being transferred without Congress. I think it probably had to do with cash and frozen Russian assets. And, I do know that Biden gave $300 million to Ukraine recently from, I guess, that stash. I'm not sure, but I'm thinking that's where it came from. However, what they need in Ukraine is air power. What they need in Ukraine is Iron Dome. What they need in Ukraine is that sling system, okay? What they need is like prostate care, is basically how I refer to that whole weapon system. I just don't think you can deliver that without congressional approval. So here you have, the Ukraine package, and it's not just money. The money comes back to the United States. About 95% of it comes back to the United States because America manufactures the weapons. And the same thing with Israel is the same thing with the Ukraine aid. 95% will come back to the United States because this is the country you live in. The country you live in manufactures the world's weapons. It's just where you are. It's just who we are. It's just what we do. And the idea that we don't do that, or the idea that when you send money out the door, it doesn't come back by purchasing, weapons from Northrop Grumman or from, Patriot missiles and all these other things, that's ridiculous. That's just, okay, that's very puny thinking, but that's, what the angry people do. They think small. They think, oh, well, if you're sending money to Ukraine, that means I'm not getting something. No, it doesn't mean that. If you send money to Ukraine, that means Russia is giving something. And with that something that Russia gave through frozen assets, the Ukrainians are buying from America weapon systems, and Congress has to approve the transfer of them. So there. It's my best guess. And it is a guess. It is. I think it's a pretty educated one, but it's a guess. Solve the world's problems, Rand. Right now, on my dime, I'm calling you. I can figure most things out. But whether or not, it's 100% infallible, I'm not Buddha. Okay? But yeah, and here's the other thing. If you don't fund Israel, right, then Israel doesn't buy the weapons from us. They manufacture them for themselves because they are pretty good. They have their own pretty awesome arsenal over there. So this idea that people are screaming, no more, stop transferring weapons to... If you did that, not only would they manufacture, but whatever they use in Gaza, it's rumored the sales of that go way up.
Clear. Mary had a little man.
The fault. We believe that all men are created equal.
To the magnificent mosaic that is America.
From radio beacon to radio beacon. I have a dream today. Change has come to America.
Believe me.
Help is on the way.
Knock, knock. Who's there?
It's a figment of your imagination.
Randi Rhodes Show.
Turn up your mind.
Thousands of pro-Palestinian, pro-Iran protesters shutting down airports, bridges across the country. Just take a look at this video. It's remarkable to see. You can see how many cars were at a standstill. This was on San Francisco's Golden Gate Bridge. I mean, this line, it's a parking lot. It goes for miles. Demonstrators also taking to the streets at Chicago O'Hare International Airport, New York's Brooklyn Bridge. Some even chanted Margbar America, which translates to death to or down with America. California Congressman Ro Khanna speaking with our Chris Cuomo, sharing his thoughts on those words.
They're chanting death to America, and America is putting their protests up on television.
Yes.
What other country would do that? That's because we're the greatest country, because we actually respect their free speech. You think they could do that in Iran?
And these idiots are actually, they're pro-Iran. They're on the streets chanting death to America, and they're pro-Iranian mullahs, which is very interesting to me because the people in Iran are not pro-Iran. The people in Iran, just like the people in Israel, they're out on the street protesting their own government. Why would you be here chanting death to the free society that lets you say death to them in favor of the society that would kill you for saying that about them? I don't know. People are weird. Anyway, what was that caller from Oregon? I don't remember his name now. But anyway, I said if you gave me a minute, I could figure it out for you. I was correct. I was actually correct. So the frozen asset money, I found the Lawrence Tribe clip too. He was talking about victims and rebuilding money. He was talking about money for victims of the aggression, people who have lost their homes, people who have lost their lives, people who have lost their families, people who have lost their livelihoods, their farmland, whatever. And also for rebuilding of schools and bridges and dams and all the things that the Russians have destroyed in Ukraine, okay, in eastern Ukraine especially. But not weapons transfers. You cannot transfer weapons without Congress weighing in. You can, give money. And so what Lawrence Tribe was pointing out is that there are frozen Russian assets and that the G7, meaning the 7 richest economies on the planet, also hold billions of dollars in frozen Russian assets. And that through a law that was used when Iraq invaded Kuwait, they were able to take the money that they were freezing from Iraq and use it to pay victims in Kuwait of Iraqi aggression. And the G7 joined, and so people were sort of, I won't say made whole, but, people were recompensed, let's say, for the aggression of Iraq. And it's got a name. It's the International Emergency Something Fund. And he was saying, how here we have it now. It's ready. He was saying how we could give money to Ukraine, and we have given money to Ukraine. We gave $300 million to Ukraine just recently.
A potential funding source for continued aid to Ukraine using a law that hasn't been used this way before. How would that work?
Well, the law, in fact, has been used. The International Emergency Economic Powers Act was used by President George H.W. Bush to first freeze assets, sovereign assets of the invading nation of Iraq when it invaded Kuwait, and then, having frozen them, it seized them and transferred them to the victims of Saddam Hussein.
Right.
The law is very clear, and it gives the power to the United States president, without any further legislation, to take the $35 billion or so of central Russian bank assets that are frozen in the United States and transfer them to the victims of Russia's illegal and genocidal war of aggression. It's a clear power. And in fact, if the United States exerts that leadership, as I've explained, and as the report that the law firm of Kaplan, Hecker, and Fink helped me develop this argument, as I've explained, when the United States first exercises that leadership, it's quite likely that other nations in the G7 will follow suit. And the total amount that can then be used to help reconstruct Ukraine from Russia's own original money that's been frozen is well over $300 billion.
Right. Right. And that money is frozen, and that money can be transferred to Ukraine to rebuild Ukraine, or like I said, dams, bridges, tunnels, the Zaporizhia power plant, schools, the theater that had children written on top, right? All of that. The money can go. The money can go, but not the weapons, not the weapons. And what does Ukraine want the money for? They want the money for weapons. And that has to be approved by Congress. Weapons transfers happen because American manufacturers make the weapons. It's not about who makes them. It's not about, whether a weapon system is developed by one company or 10 companies together, and it's about transferring them from the United States to another nation. That's what requires congressional approval. And I hope that clears it up. Elba in California.
Hi.
Hey.
Oh, my goodness. Randi.
Yeah.
I am so glad to talk with you. Thank you so much for taking my call. Listen, I'm going to make it quick. I just wanted to say that I'm looking at everything happening right now from a historical perspective. And one of the things that came up was a quote from Martin Luther King Jr., and it says, "Nothing in all the world is more dangerous than sincere ignorance and conscientious stupidity." And I wanted to put that in for your listeners and for you to enjoy, in a cynical kind of way. But then I also want to say that I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I think it is really interesting that O.J. Simpson's appearance in the media, as large of an appearance as he had over the last few days, is coinciding with one of a historical trial. O.J.'s trial was historical, okay, and it was hysterical,
but at least O.J.'s was on the TV. Where is Lance?
Exactly.
Where's Lancito when you need him now? You know what I mean? It's like honestly, it's interesting for me. The only thing I can say about O.J. and then John, Donald John Trump being on trial, near in time to each other in the headlines is, it's sort of a bookend for my entire career. Like I started with the O.J. trial, right? And that was 11 months of my my first, right? And now I'm going to end with Donald Trump on trial in one of these trials. And I hope it's Fulton County, Georgia, because that one will be on TV. Do you know?
Yes.
Yeah. So
I was just thinking the fact that he's going to be, there's a possibility that this guy will not be convicted.
No.
O.J. he got convicted. I mean, he did not get convicted.
No, he did not.
He
Right.
killed two people. I say that he killed.
No, he did.
So he got off.
Yeah,
I mean, we got the first black man in history that got off for killing two white people.
I know.
And then we have a white president, okay, who former president who might get off for the insurrection. Hey, I love you so much, and you keep up the good work. Okay,
Thanks,
take
Elba.
care.
Thank you for calling me. I appreciate you very much, and your timing is exceptional. Nicely done, girl. Nicely done. So yeah, I mean, it sort of hit me that way too. Like the trial of the century '95 and the trial of the century 2025 or 2024. It's unbelievable. But let's hope it has a different verdict.
All things Randi at RandiRhodes.com.
Go for launch.
Yeah,
Speaking truth to power, the Randi Rhodes Show.
Anyone who bought Trump media shares when it peaked, and I guess, Dan, that was $66 per share. So they've now lost half their money. And just to be clear, people who got in and bought at that price were not inside, sophisticated Wall Street insiders, right? These were small-time investors who support Donald Trump, wanted to support his company. There was a person who put a large chunk of his life savings in this company. He told the Washington Post, Dan, I know good and well it's in Trump's hands, and he's got plans. I have no doubt it's going to explode sometime.
Yeah, in your
face.
face.
That actually makes me really sad. I mean, how do you even react to that?
Yeah. It is a sad story, and the trouble here is that if you look at the fundamentals of the company, it's poised to go down a lot more.
Okay.
If you look at the number of users that this company has, the amount of revenue that it generates, its valuation should be measured in the hundreds of millions of dollars at the most. Right now, the public markets are valuing it at $3.5 billion. So that means that this stock should fall by at least another 90% before the metrics start to make any amount of sense.
Yeah.
And for people who are just blindly putting their faith in Trump and in the company, that means that they could stand to lose a lot of money. And if somebody's just throwing a couple of, $1,000 that they have extra, okay, fine. People donate to political campaigns too. But if somebody's putting a significant chunk of their life savings into it, they could really get wiped out by the very person who they're trusting their money to, saying this guy's going to make this company an amazing venture.
Doing it right in front of your face while he's on trial for being for business fraud. Donald Trump is on trial for election interference and business fraud. Business fraud to hide payments to a porn star and to a woman he had an affair with, who he had the affair with while Melania was pregnant with Barron, and did it so that you wouldn't know the full truth about what a dog he really is after the Access Hollywood tape became known and very, very viral. He did that and then fraudulently said they were legal fees that he was paying back to Michael Cohen. So he's on trial for business fraud and election interference. At the same time, he's doing stock fraud.
Look, most cults do require you give them all of your possession, all of your wealth, all of your assets as you join. This shouldn't shock anybody.
You know, Bob Costas actually said something about that. First, it was pretty, because I always think of Bob Costas as politically neutral, and maybe I should not, because he's, like really entertaining and smart and sassy. So maybe I should think of him as, being, some sort of brother in arms or something like this. But he actually was so sickened by all of these accusations by the right about the left having something called Trump derangement syndrome, because Donald Trump has committed so many crimes that he's on trial in so many jurisdictions for 91 felonies.
He is by far the most disgraceful figure in modern presidential history. He's only become more disgraceful since 2016 and since 2020. He is a bubbling cauldron of loathsome traits, and it's only those who are actually suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, which is the way they and Fox News and all the rest of MAGA media try to brush aside all the legitimate criticisms of Trump. You have to be in the throes of some sort of toxic delusion, in a toxic cult, to believe that Donald Trump has ever been, in any sense, emotionally, psychologically, intellectually, or ethically fit to be president of the United States. But his supporters are locked in on that.
I honestly, that is, what this poor guy, the 71-year-old tree cutter in Oklahoma, and others mentioned in this 10-page Washington Post article, are suffering from as they give their little nest eggs of 25 grand to the Donald Trump stock, which is a dog. It's a scam. It's a sham.
I'm waiting for the mental gymnastics on how it's Joe Biden's fault. There will somehow, some way get there.
Yes, Joe Biden never regulated Wall Street, and we need Wall Street regulation after all. Listen, the idea that this could be sold on the NASDAQ is really pretty shocking. It's pretty sickening, and I understand that it had to have this SPAC, vehicle, which isn't. It's not like a real company. It's a shell company. It was designed to do this. Why? Why is it designed to do that? Why do we allow designs like that for ordinary people to lose their money on? I mean, listen, I know buyer beware is one thought, but there's also consumer protection, no? So, you're going to have to balance your interest there. And in this particular scenario, I'm rooting for and trying to legislate for the MAGA guy. So I keep saying there's a lot about me that MAGA should just freaking praise. I'm trying to protect your ass from this charlatan, from this fraudster, from this mob maniac, this douche. He's such a bad person. He's so completely without shame. He will never feel bad for ripping you off. He will never stop ripping you off. The really dirty little secret, I think, was pointed out on day one when this stock first became public and publicly traded. We had a call from a woman, I believe, who was very, very, very in tune with what was really, I believe, going on. And that is that it became a vehicle for big money to donate to Donald Trump's presidential campaign without violating campaign finance laws, which is what he's on trial for in New York right now. Fraud in order to violate campaign finance laws. I mean, the man is like a one-trick pony. He just dresses it up in different outfits, and you people fall for it. And it breaks your heart in a weird way to see people losing their life savings, because in the end, somebody's going to have to take care of 71-year-old Under Armour wearing tree cutter man. And it ain't going to be the great state of Oklahoma. It's going to be us. It's going to be, people who, pay into Social Security. So sad, so sick. But 400,000 small retail investors, 400,000 of them bought this Trump stock. 400,000. Now, the handful of the very wealthy that are now issuing even more shares to dilute the value of the 400,000 shares, I believe they did it so that they could contribute to Donald Trump and garner tax breaks on the back end should Donald Trump become president of the Confederacy or some such crap. Because that's all Donald Trump can be president of is the Confederacy. This country does not elect him. And the more that everybody sees him on the TV, the more everybody hears him roaring after, falling asleep at his own freaking criminal trial, the more he harps at the judge, the more he blames everybody for things that he keeps repeating, behavior that he keeps repeating, the more exhausted everybody feels. Exhausted people don't vote for you. People who have had it with the amount of maintenance your ego takes, people who are done with all of the listen, the weird thing is he's not tweeting, he's not on X or Twitter. He's doing it on this sham of a platform called Truth Social. And so most Americans, like 90% of Americans, don't even see his rants. They don't even hear from him anymore. And everybody forgot how chaotic he is.
Call in, connect. To speak to Randi, call 561-270-3844. 561-270-3844.
Then in San Francisco, 2 blockades happening at the very same time on the Golden Gate Bridge and Interstate 880 in Oakland, blocking all traffic through the Bay Area. The iconic bridge looked like a parking lot. Police had to use jackhammers and saws to break dozens of protesters out of chains attached to cement-filled barrels before then arresting them. These coordinated protests in New York, Philadelphia, Seattle, and many other cities were designed to bring the country to a halt. The majority of the demonstrations were peaceful, but this morning, scenes like this burning of the American flag in New York and some possibly insightful rhetoric like death to America prompting national security concerns.
Bye bye, America! Bye bye, America! Bye bye, America! Bye bye, America!
Thank you.
Oh, for God's sake.
This is a protest that's pissing everybody off. That's not the point of a protest. The point of a protest is to garner support for your cause. That's why I loved the primary protest. I loved it. I thought it was the smartest, most effective protest I had ever seen in my life. The primary protest, where in Michigan and other places, but in Michigan it started, where there was an uncommitted box on the Democratic primary ballot, right? And people were able to vote uncommitted and send a message without hurting anybody, without keeping people from being able to get to work, without burning American flags, without screaming and yelling death to America, without, causing other people pain, without causing other people, late fees or whatever. Okay. And it was successful. It worked because it didn't piss off anybody. It sent the message, right? And right after those primaries, and there were a bunch of them in various states that had a box that you could check that pretty much, substituted for the words uncommitted. It was like unaffiliated or whatever. I forget what it was. But it worked. Joe Biden, right after he saw that demonstration, that request that, they stop supporting, Israel unless and until aid was brought in to the Gaza Strip, like 20,000 trucks, like they wanted real water, real food. Oh my God. To individual civilians who were suffering under a terrorist organization's government, right? And they weren't wrong about any of that. And the way that they chose to send that message was brilliant, and it freaking worked. But let me tell you something. When you start burning American flags, not that I think, my whole world's going to crumble because I was in the military and you can't burn my American flag. It's not like, I'm just saying it pisses people off. And you lose support. for your cause. When you block traffic and chain yourself to cement barrels, and the police have to then bring in, welders and equipment to separate you from a bar, you're going to piss people off. You really are. And the idea that you're for Iran is very interesting to me when you consider that the people in Iran are not for Iran. They're not. Especially the women folk. They're not, you remember there were like an inordinate amount of protests because women wanted to have the choice, no, not of having a pregnancy, of wearing something on their head, right? Women wanted the choice of whether or not they were going to wear hijabs. They wanted the choice of whether or not they had to cover their hair. Ooh, scary. And so some women, organized themselves to go without covering their hair. And they were arrested. And women were brutalized. And they still are being arrested and imprisoned and brutalized. And people are with them. Americans are with those women. Americans are with the women who want to be left alone by the mullahs. And these kinds of protests are spreading around Iran. The Iranian people are so done with the religious, fundamentalism of the Ayatollah. They don't want it anymore. They're not into it. They've lost their desire and taste for having to go before a group of men to ask them whether or not they can, go to the supermarket without a close male relative. Do you understand? They're done with it. And here you have Americans who are free to do this, doing it for the oppressive ones. And I will never figure it out. Plus, you're pissing people off. The Golden Gate Bridge was shut down for 5 hours. 5 hours. Oh, my God. That's like Bridgegate already. You know what I mean? It's like people should go to jail for that at this point. Now, some of them were arrested, for blocking traffic and all that crap. But this is, it's ridiculous because it's not doing what you want it to do. And what you want it to do is win hearts and minds over to your position. And let me tell you something. Americans aren't going to ever be pro-Iran as long as Iran is, flying drones over A, Israel, B, Ukraine. And they are the same drones. They're the same Iranian drones in both conflicts. But that's, and no American who's worth their weight in styrofoam is going to be like pro-Iranian mullahs, pro-Iranian drone attacks. I mean, it's never going to happen. And you shutting down bridges. I guess that's very, bridges are falling, bridges are being blocked, you're chaining yourself to a bridge. It's like, go jump off a bridge. Do you know what I'm saying? Oh, and by the way, Tom Cotton, the senator from Arkansas, he's a real psycho, man. I'm saying, look, you have the right to protest. Just think about how you're protesting. If you're looking to win hearts and minds to your cause. That's my message. His is throw them off the bridge. His is, rip their hands off of the, they chain themselves to cement barrels full of cement. They've chained themselves. And he's like, well, rip their arms off if you have to. I mean, really, seriously, any violence that you could conjure for these people, for these right-wing Republicans, it's good stuff. It's great.
If something like this happened in Arkansas on a bridge there, let's just say I think there'd be a lot of very wet criminals that have been tossed overboard, not by law enforcement, but by the people whose road they're blocking. If they glued their hands to a car or the pavement, well, probably pretty painful to have their skin ripped off. But I think that's the way we'd handle it in Arkansas. And I would encourage most people anywhere that get stuck behind criminals like this who are trying to block traffic to take matters in their own hands. There's only usually a few of them, and there's a lot of people being inconvenienced. It's time to put an end to this nonsense.
How Christian?
This is the Trump effect. Would he say these violent things pre-Trump?
It's amazing. It's really amazing. Instead of saying, hey, America's the greatest, freest nation in the world, which is what Ro Khanna said, it's what I said, it's what a lot of, Americans would say, looking at a protest that was poorly organized and pissed people off and had the counter effect to the desired effect, right? But not them. Oh, no. They look at it and they go, you know what? We'll rip your skin off. We'll throw you off a freaking bridge. And we won't wait for law enforcement either. We're going to do it ourselves. See, this is the raw death sentence theory, right? If there's protesters in the street, you know, if this happened in Florida, right? People would be allowed to ram their car into you and kill you.
Clear. Fatality. This is the Randi Rhodes Show. To speak with Randi, dial 561-270-3844. That's 561-270-3844.
What was your reaction when you saw them carrying the Hezbollah flags, protesters here in America, burning the American flag, chanting death to America?
It's disheartening knowing that my generation went to war for 20 years. But, you know, Ainsley, I say you can't cure stupid. You just can't. And the good people need to really affect this great reset in the 2024 elections. We can't afford any more of this poor performance.
Mike, do you worry about the state of the country when you look at the military recruitment is down? You got kids that I speak to on the street, they don't remember 9/11. Some of them weren't even born. They don't understand. I mean, I saw these protesters with this flag in Lower Manhattan where the towers fell. I just felt like that was untouchable at one point in time. Is there some anguish in your heart as someone that went and fought the war, and then you come back home and people don't even respect that?
If the next generation doesn't feel pride in our country, that's because we have failed them.
Bingo. This man almost won the award for the least amount of self-awareness in a human being ever. And the award goes to that guy. The idea that we were at war for 20 years, that they were forever wars, endless wars, and that they were fought against people that did not attack us, how can he not realize that my generation, even though, you know I was anti-war, you know how hard I protested not to go into Iraq, how many nights I literally went to Crawford, Texas, and slept in a ditch in front of W's house, okay? But these guys, who should know better, that 20 years of forever wars, 20 years of endless wars, pointless wars against countries that were A, unarmed, B, did not attack the United States, made everybody so anti-war. Well, if they're not proud of America after we fought for 20 years, that's the exact point. That's what they're trying to tell you, these kids. Stop ignoring them. I swear to God. All you got to do is burn an American flag and you lose everybody. Everybody on the right. They're all gone. No one will coalesce around your idea. No one will talk to you. No one will listen to you. No one will hear you. No one will see you. No one will believe you. Nobody wants anything to do with you on the right. And I got news for you. Whatever we do as a country, it's going to have to be bipartisan. Even Mike Johnson knows that now, which is why Mike Johnson is separating out, these aid packages so that the hard left doesn't have to vote for Israeli money and the hard right doesn't have to vote for Ukraine money. So Marjorie Taylor Greene won't, discharge him from his position as Speaker of the House. It's madness. It's madness what's gone on. And it's all because we can't have normal conversations about recent past history, 20-year wars, who started them, who ended them, who always starts them, who always ends them. And when a Democratic president makes a mistake with a war, he knows, I failed. I will not run again. I will not run for president again. I messed up in Vietnam. I messed up the whole thing. 58,000 young Americans will die because of me, and I will not run for president. But honestly, man, this was so disgusting. And then in the same breath, these same war fighters, the same guy, sitting there saying, we need to fight more. We need to kill more people in Gaza. We need to, keep going.
Israel is getting ready to do something. But at the same time, we heard from the White House on Sunday that the United States, will not support anything that Israel does to counterattack them. So it's out.
Wait. This is a garbage in, garbage out moment, okay? Just I'm going to finish this clip, but garbage in, garbage out. What the president of the United States said, what Joe Biden said, is we will not help Israel to do anything offensive in Iran. We will defend Israel, and we did defend Israel. When Iran attacked Israel, we were up there. We were on aircraft carriers. We were in the Mediterranean. We were in the Red Sea. We were in the sky. We helped, get rid of all these drones. We helped take down all these, missiles. We'll help them defend themselves. I don't know why we don't do it in Ukraine, but okay, we will. But we're not going to help them bomb anybody. We're not going to help them escalate into World War III, especially when Iran did it just for a performative reason, right? Iran launched all that crap, knowing that it would be defeated. Now, how did they know that? Because they gave everybody like a month's warning. Okay, I'm exaggerating. But they told everybody, we're going to plan something and we're going to send in our very slow drones so you'll see them coming. You could shoot them down. And then we're going to launch this and that. So get your Iron Dome ready. And America, go ahead and shoot them down and blah, blah, blah. And we really hope we don't hurt anybody because we don't really want a wider war. We're Iran. And we can't really, really fight a wider war because we're Iran. Now, we're 1,000 miles away from Israel, so you will see us coming. And as soon as they were done, they said, okay, that's it. That's what we're doing. We're done. We're not doing any more. So this portion of our attack is concluded, and it's the entirety of it. And so the United States said to Netanyahu, take the win. Take the win. And so we don't want to do anything offensive with Israel in order to escalate this. It's called an escalation ladder. It actually has a name. And we don't want to be on that escalation ladder with them. Okay? So he says, we don't want to help them counterattack? No, we don't want to help them do anything offensive in Iran.
Anything that Israel does to counterattack them. So it sounds like, are they on their own?
I'll tell you what. Netanyahu probably gets off the phone with Biden and says one word: feckless.
Yes, I'm sure
They probably lost 100% confidence in the U.S. right now, knowing that potentially there's a reset with Trump. Israel has always been prepared to go alone. And there's really two sort of scenarios here. There's the direct attack, which would most likely be against the Natanz or Isfahan nuclear facilities, but Natanz is so far down in the ground, no bunker buster can reach it.
That's right.
They would require ground troops after that. Most likely is the indirect approach, fifth generation warfare through subterfuge, which is cyber to shut down their comms grid, their energy grid, to make the dissidents rise up. Israel knows this. The Ayatollah in this religious theocracy is on its last breath.
Yep.
And Iran only exists because of the two wild cards in this, and that is Russia and China.
I also saw the militants took over to a military facility like last week. They're rising up within Iran, which is so insane that we're protesting for Iran in America, and yet in Iran they hate their government.
They do. That is a fact. So why would you help bomb Iran so that the Iranians would rally around the Iranian flag when the dissidents in Iran are ready to remove the Iranian mullahs from the Iranian government? And that's what America is telling Israel. And these people are so, they're just so deaf, dumb, and blind to the opportunity here, which is to do something that actually enables and empowers the people of Iran who would love to push out their government. Same thing with Israel. Before all this happened, Israel was attacked. I mean, there's just no question that it wasn't like Ukraine. Ukraine was sitting there doing absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. Nothing wrong. Nothing, offensive. Nothing, disgusting. Nothing, with Russia. And Russia just total war of aggression. Total. Okay? Gaza, the Hamas, the terrorist group, acted like terrorists do. And they created a terrorist attack all morning, for hours, killing 1,200, maybe more people, and raping their way through southern Israel. When Israel answered, which we all knew they would, including Hamas, they went full medieval. I mean, they went full throttle. They went full kill 'em all. And that blew any support they had in the world. Why would you encourage them to then do that in Iran? The people of Israel were on the street protesting Netanyahu to begin with, and that's why he went full medieval, okay? Because he's trying to stay in power. And that pretty much is what happens in Iran, although Iran doesn't want a war, and that's why the mullahs chose a performative fireworks display. I mean, people are just lazy thought, lazy thinkers.